So I'll move into the aspect of, in terms of the protective meditations, Buddhanusati is one of them. And of course oftentimes there's not a hard dividing line between these protective meditations, and but I think this like recollecting the Buddha, I think, is not just, say, thinking about the story of the Buddha or the history of the Buddha, but it's also what did the Buddha stand for? What does the Buddha mean to us as practitioners? and I think one of the things, certainly is in terms of the Buddha as being an embodiment of the Dhamma, and there's of course, the Buddha is saying, "One who sees the Dhamma sees me," but also Luang Por Chah really emphasized how the aspect of, say, Buddha Dhamma Sangha are not just, say, superstition or ceremony or ritual, but really learning how to rely on practice and practicing, seeing, experiencing the truth of the Dhamma that the Buddha taught, and that's really the way to get a feel for, well, what was the Buddha, who was the Buddha, and I think that aspect of the turning attention toward the Dhamma itself and practicing it and living it is probably a far a better way of experiencing, well, what was the Buddha all about anyway. This next verse, it's a sutta from the Khanda Samyutta and Samyutta Nikaya, and Samyutta 22, Sutta 87, Vakali. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Rajagaha in the bamboo grove, the squirrel sanctuary. Now on that occasion, the Venerable Vakali was dwelling in a potter's shed, sick, afflicted, gravely ill. Then the Venerable Vakali addressed his attendants. Come, friends, approach the Blessed One, pay homage to him in my name, with your head at his feet, and say, Venerable Sir, the Bhikkhu Vakali is sick, afflicted, gravely ill. He pays homage to the Blessed One, with his head at his feet. Then say, it would be good, Venerable Sir, if the Blessed One would approach the Bhikkhu Vakali out of compassion. Yes, friend, those bhikkhus replied. And they approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side, and delivered their message. The Blessed One consented by silence. Then the Blessed One, dressed and taking bowl and robe, approached the Venerable Vakali. The Venerable Vakali saw the Blessed One coming in the distance and stirred on his bed, trying to get up. The Blessed One said to him, Enough, Vakali, do not stir on your bed. There are these seats ready. I will sit down there. The Blessed One then sat down on the appointed seat and said to the Venerable Vakali, I hope you are bearing up, Vakali. I hope you are getting better. I hope your painful feelings are subsiding and not increasing, and that their subsiding, not their increase, is to be discerned. Venerable Sir, I am not bearing up. I am not getting better. Strong, painful feelings are increasing in me, not subsiding, and their increase, not their subsiding, is to be discerned. I hope then, Vakali, that you are not troubled by remorse and regret. Indeed, Venerable Sir, I have quite a lot of remorse and regret. I hope, Vakali, that you have nothing for which to reproach yourself in regard to virtue. I have nothing, Venerable Sir, for which to reproach myself in regard to virtue. Then, Vakali, if you have nothing for which to reproach yourself in regard to virtue, why are you troubled by remorse and regret? For a long time, Venerable Sir, I have wanted to come to see the Blessed One, but I haven't been fit enough to do so. Enough, Vakali. Why do you want to see this foul body? One who sees the Dhamma sees me. One who sees me sees the Dhamma. For in seeing the Dhamma, Vakali, one sees me, and in seeing me, one sees the Dhamma. What do you think, Vakali? Is form permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. But is that which is impermanent painful or pleasurable? Painful, Venerable Sir. But is it fit to consider that which is impermanent, painful, of a nature to change, as this is mine, I am this is myself? It is not, Venerable Sir. What do you think about this, Vakali? Is feeling permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. But is that which is impermanent painful or pleasurable? Painful, Venerable Sir. But is it fit to consider that which is impermanent, painful, of a nature to change, as this is mine, I am this is myself? It is not, Venerable Sir. What do you think about this, Vakali? Is perception permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. But is that which is impermanent painful or pleasurable? Painful, Venerable Sir. But is it fit to consider that which is impermanent, painful, of a nature to change, as this is mine, I am this is myself? It is not, Venerable Sir. What do you think about this, Vakali? Are mental formations permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. But is that which is impermanent painful or pleasurable? Painful, Venerable Sir. But is it fit to consider that which is impermanent, painful, of a nature to change, as this is mine, I am this is myself? It is not, Venerable Sir. What do you think about this, Vakali? Is consciousness permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. But is that which is impermanent painful or pleasurable? Painful, Venerable Sir. But is it fit to consider that which is impermanent, painful, of a nature to change, as this is mine, I am this is myself? It is not, Venerable Sir. Wherefore, Vakali, whatever form there is, past, future, present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, whether it is far or near, all form should, by means of right wisdom, be seen as it really is thus. This is not mine, I am not this is not myself. Whatever feeling there is, past, future, present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, whether it is far or near, all feeling should, by means of right wisdom, be seen as it really is thus. This is not mine, I am not this is not myself. Whatever perception there is, past, future, present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, whether it is far or near, all perception should, by means of right wisdom, be seen as it really is thus. This is not mine, I am not this is not myself. Whatever mental formations there are, past, future, present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, whether they are far or near, all mental formations should, by means of right wisdom, be seen as they really are thus. This is not mine, I am not this is not myself. Whatever consciousness there is, past, future, present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, whether far or near, all consciousness should, by means of right wisdom, be seen as it really is thus. This is not mine. I am not this. This is not myself. Seeing in this way, Vakali, the wise, noble disciple becomes disenchanted with form, becomes disenchanted with feeling, becomes disenchanted with perception, becomes disenchanted with mental formations, becomes disenchanted with consciousness. Becoming disenchanted, their passions fade away. With the fading of passion, the heart is liberated. With liberation, there comes the knowledge. It is liberated. And they know. Destroyed is birth. The holy life has been lived out. Done is what had to be done. There is no more coming into any state of being. Then the Blessed One, having given this exhortation to the Venerable Vakali, rose from his seat and departed for Vulture Peak. So that that's a very great example of the Buddha turning it around. Somebody who has tremendous faith in the Buddha himself, or and a lot of kind of fretting and kind of flurry about not being able to see the Buddha, and the Buddha just sort of, no, what's there to see in this body? Pay attention to the Dhamma. Don't get lost. And there's a similar sutta in the Itivuttaka, sutta number 92. This was said by the Blessed One, said by the Arahant. So I have heard. Even if a monk, taking hold of my outer cloak, were to follow right behind me, placing his feet in my footsteps, yet if he were to be greedy for sensual pleasures, strong in his passions, malevolent in mind, corrupt in his resolves, his mindfulness muddled, unalert, uncentered, his mind scattered, and his faculties uncontrolled, then he would be far from me, and I from him. Why is that? Because he does not see the Dhamma. Not seeing the Dhamma, he does not see me. But even if a monk were to live 100 leagues away, yet if he were to have no greed for sensual objects, were not strong in his passions, not malevolent in mind, uncorrupt in his resolves, his mindfulness established, alert, centered, his mind at singleness, his faculties well restrained, then he would be near to me, and I to him. Why is that? Because he sees the Dhamma. Seeing the Dhamma, he sees me. And the sutta ends with some verses. Though following right behind, full of desire, vexation, see how far he is. The perturbed from the unperturbed, the bound from the unbound, the greedy one from the one with no greed. But the wise person who, through direct knowledge of Dhamma, gnosis of Dhamma, grows still and unperturbed, like a lake unruffled by wind. See how close he is, the unperturbed to the unperturbed, the unbound to the unbound, the greedless one to the one with no greed. Then there's a slightly different angle on this in terms of like paying homage to the difference between paying homage to the Buddha as opposed to paying homage to the Dhamma. The Buddha makes a very beautiful point that this is, because it comes up in many places, but I particularly like this excerpt from the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, which is Diga 16. Then the Blessed One, with a large community of monks, went to the far shore of the Hiranyavati river and headed for Upavattana, the Malan Sal Grove near Kusinara. On arrival, he said to Venerable Ananda, "Ananda, please prepare a bed for me between the twin sal trees, with its head to the north. I am tired and will lie down." Responding, "As you say, Lord," Venerable Ananda prepared a bed between the twin sal trees, with its head to the north. Then the Blessed One lay down on his right side in the lion sleeping posture, with one foot on top of the other, mindful and alert. Now at that time the twin sal trees were in full bloom, even though it was not the time for flowering. They showered, strewed, and sprinkled on the Tathagata's body in homage to him. Heavenly coral tree blossoms fell from the sky, showering, strewing, and sprinkling the Tathagata's body in homage to him. Heavenly sandalwood powder fell from the sky, showering, strewing, and sprinkling the Tathagata's body in homage to him. Heavenly music was playing in the sky in homage to the Tathagata. Heavenly songs were sung in the sky in homage to the Tathagata. Then the Blessed One said to the Venerable Ananda, "Ananda, the twin sal trees are in full bloom, even though it's not the flowering season. They shower, strew, and sprinkle on the Tathagata's body in homage to him. Heavenly coral tree blossoms are falling from the sky. Heavenly sandalwood powder is falling from the sky. Heavenly music is playing in the sky. Heavenly songs are sung in the sky in homage to the Tathagata. But it is not to this extent that a Tathagata is worshipped, honored, respected, venerated, or paid homage to. Rather, the monk, nun, male lay follower or female lay follower who keeps practicing the Dhamma in accordance with the Dhamma, who keeps practicing masterfully, who lives in accordance with the Dhamma, that is the person who worships, honors, respects, venerates, and pays homage to the Tathagata with the highest homage. So you should train yourselves. We will keep practicing the Dhamma in accordance with the Dhamma. We will keep practicing masterfully. We will live in accordance with the Dhamma. That is how you should train yourselves." And another sutta that I found, Sangyutta 6, Sutta number 2, the Garava Sutta, reverence. "I have heard that on one occasion, when the Blessed One was newly self-awakened, he was staying in Uruvela on the bank of the Neranjara river, at the foot of the goatherd's banyan tree. Then, while he was alone and in seclusion, this line of thinking arose in his awareness. One suffers if dwelling without reverence or deference. Now, on what Brahman or contemplative can I dwell in dependence, honoring and respecting him? Then the thought occurred to him. It would be for the sake of perfecting an unperfected aggregate of virtue that I would dwell in dependence on another Brahman or contemplative, honoring and respecting him. However, in this world with its devas, maras, and brahmas, in this generation with its Brahmins and contemplatives, its royalty and common folk, I do not see another Brahman or contemplative more consummate in virtue than I, on whom I could dwell in dependence, honoring and respecting him. It would be for the sake of perfecting an unperfected aggregate of concentration that I would dwell in dependence on another Brahman or contemplative, honoring and respecting him. However, in this world with its devas, maras, and brahmas, in this generation with its Brahmins and contemplatives, its royalty and common folk, I do not see another Brahman or contemplative more consummate in concentration than I, on whom I could dwell in dependence, honoring and respecting him. It would be for the sake of perfecting an unperfected aggregate of discernment that I would dwell in dependence on another Brahman or contemplative, honoring and respecting him. However, in this world with its devas, maras, and brahmas, in this generation with its Brahmins and contemplatives, its royalty and common folk, I do not see another Brahman or contemplative more consummate in discernment than I, on whom I could dwell in dependence, honoring and respecting him. It would be for the sake of perfecting an unperfected aggregate of release that I would dwell in dependence on another Brahman or contemplative, honoring and respecting him. However, in this world with its devas, maras, and brahmas, in this generation with its Brahmins and contemplatives, its royalty and common folk, I do not see another Brahman or contemplative more consummate in release than I, on whom I could dwell in dependence, honoring and respecting him. It would be for the sake of perfecting an unperfected aggregate of knowledge and vision of release that I would dwell in dependence on another Brahman or contemplative, honoring and respecting him. However, in this world with its devas, maras, and brahmas, in this generation with its Brahmins and contemplatives, its royalty and common folk, I do not see another Brahman or contemplative more consummate in knowledge and vision of release than I, on whom I could dwell in dependence, honoring and respecting him. What if I were to dwell in dependence on this very Dhamma to which I have fully awakened, honoring and respecting it? Then, having known with his own awareness the line of thinking in the Blessed One's awareness, just as the strong man might extend his flexed arm or flex his extended arm, Brahma Sahampati disappeared from the Brahma world and reappeared in front of the Blessed One. Arranging his upper robe over one shoulder, he saluted the Blessed One with his hands before his heart and said to him, "So it is, Blessed One, so it is, well gone one." Those who were arahants, rightly self-awakened ones in the past, they too dwelled in dependence on the very Dhamma itself, honoring and respecting it. Those who will be arahants, rightly self-awakened ones in the future, they too will dwell in dependence on the very Dhamma itself, honoring and respecting it. And let the Blessed One, who is at present the Arahant, the rightly self-awakened one, dwell in dependence on the very Dhamma itself, honoring and respecting it. That is what the Brahma Sahampati said. Having said that, he further said this: past Buddhas, future Buddhas, and he who is the Buddha now, removing the sorrow of many, all have dwelt, will dwell, and now dwell, revering the true Dhamma. This, for Buddhas, is a natural law. Therefore, one who desires his own good, aspiring for greatness, should respect the true Dhamma, recollecting the Buddha's teaching. So the next reading, I'll move out of the suttas and into Lumpur Cha, is from the talk Tuccho Pothila, which is the story of a scholar who had much knowledge, but he hadn't yet seen the Dhamma, and he realized that, and it's a how do you say, an apocryphal tale, commentarial story, but illustrates a very important point. And he ended up taking. He became a student of a novice who began to train him, and then so that overcoming the kind of say pride or hesitation in in becoming a student of somebody else after he'd been the teacher to many, many people. And then, of course, Lupa Cha's teaching to, that this relying on Buddho, or the one who knows, as very much a direct path to seeing both the Dhamma and the Buddha. So the novice is putting Tuccho Pothila through some difficulties. Tuccho Pothila, neatly robed, plunged into the bog. The novice didn't tell him to stop until he was completely covered with mud. Finally, he said, "You can stop now." So he stopped. "Okay, come out now." And so he came out. This clearly showed the novice that Tuccho Pothila had given up his pride. He was ready to accept the teaching. If he wasn't ready to learn, he wouldn't have run into the bog like that, being such a famous teacher. But he did it. The young novice, seeing this, knew that Tuccho Pothila, and novice is an arhat, knew that Tuccho Pothila was sincerely determined to practice. When Tuccho Pothila had come out of the bog, the novice gave him the teaching. He taught him to observe the sense objects, to know the mind, and to know the sense objects, using the simile of a man catching a lizard hiding in a termite mound. If the mound had 6 holes in it, how would he catch it? He would have to seal off 5 of the holes and leave just 1 open. Then he would have to simply watch and wait, guarding that 1 hole. When the lizard ran out, he could catch it. Observing the mind is like this. Closing off the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body, we leave only the mind. To close off the senses means to restrain and compose them, observing only the mind. Meditation is like catching the lizard. We use sati to note the breath. Sati is the quality of recollection, as in asking yourself, what am I doing? Sampajanya is the awareness that now I am doing such and such. We observe the in and out breathing with sati and sampajanya. This quality of recollection is something that arises from practice. It's not something that can be learned from books. Know the feelings that arise. The mind may be fairly inactive for a while, and then a feeling arises. Sati works in conjunction with these feelings, recollecting them. There is sati, the recollection that I will speak, I will go, I will sit, and so on. And then there is sampajanya, the awareness that now I am walking, I am lying down, I am experiencing such and such a mood. With sati and sampajanya, we can know our minds in the present moment, and we will know how the mind reacts to sense impressions. That which is aware of sense objects is called mind. Sense objects wander into the mind. For instance, there is a sound, like the electric drill here. It enters through the ear and travels inwards to the mind. There's probably some building project going on in Wapapal, which acknowledges that it is the sound of an electric drill. That which acknowledges the sound is called mind. Now this mind which acknowledges that sound is quite basic. It's just the average mind. Perhaps annoyance arises within the one who acknowledges. We must further train the one who acknowledges to become the one who knows, in accordance with the truth, known as Buddho. If we don't clearly know in accordance with the truth, then we get annoyed at sounds of people, cars, electric drills, and so on. This is just the ordinary, untrained mind acknowledging the sound with annoyance. It knows in accordance with its preferences, not in accordance with truth. We must further train it to know that with vision and insight, jnana dasana, say knowledge and vision, the power of the refined mind, so that it knows the sound as simply sound. If we don't cling to sound, there is no annoyance. The sound arises, and we simply note it. This is called truly knowing the arising of sense objects. If we develop the Buddho, clearly realizing the sound is sound, then it doesn't annoy us. It arises according to conditions. It is not a being, an individual, a self, an us, or a them. It's just sound. The mind lets go. This knowing is called Buddho, the knowledge that is clear and penetrating. With this knowledge, we can let the sound simply be sound. It doesn't disturb us unless we disturb it by thinking, I don't want to hear that sound. It's annoying. Suffering arises because of this thinking. Right here is the cause of suffering, that we don't know the truth of this matter. We haven't developed the Buddho. We are not yet clear, not yet awake, not yet aware. This is the raw, untrained mind. This mind is not yet truly useful to us. Therefore, the Buddha taught that this mind must be trained and developed. We must develop the mind just like we develop the body, but we do it in a different way. To develop the body, we must exercise it, jogging in the morning and evening and so on. This is exercising the body. As a result, the body becomes more agile, stronger. The respiratory and nervous systems become more efficient. To exercise the mind, we don't have to move it around, but bring it to a halt, bring it to rest. For instance, when practicing meditation, we take an object, such as the in and out breathing, as our foundation. This becomes the focus of our attention and reflection. We look at the breathing. To look at the breathing means to follow the breathing with awareness, noting its rhythm, its coming and going. We put awareness into the breath, following the natural in and out breathing and letting go of all else. As a result of staying on one object of awareness, our mind becomes refreshed. If we let the mind think of this, that, and the other, there are many objects of awareness. The mind doesn't unify. It doesn't come to rest. To say the mind stops means that it feels as if it stopped. It doesn't go running here and there. It's like having a sharp knife. If we use the knife to cut at things indiscriminately, such as stones, bricks, and grass, our knife will quickly become blunt and dull. We should use it for cutting only the things it was meant for. Our mind is the same. If we let the mind wander after thoughts and feelings which have no value or use, the mind becomes tired and weak. If the mind has no energy, wisdom will not arise, because the mind without energy is the mind without samadhi. If the mind hasn't stopped, you can't clearly see the sense objects for what they are. The knowledge that the mind is the mind, sense objects are merely sense objects, is the root from which Buddhism has grown and developed. This is the heart of Buddhism. We must cultivate this mind, develop it, training it in calm and insight. We train the mind to have restraint and wisdom by letting the mind stop and allowing wisdom to arise, by knowing the mind as it is. You know, the way we human beings are, the way we do things, we're just like little children. A child doesn't know anything. To an adult observing the behavior of a child, the way it plays and jumps around, its actions don't seem to have much purpose. If our mind is untrained, it is like a child. We speak without awareness and act without wisdom. We may fall to ruin or cause untold harm and not even know it. A child is ignorant. It plays as children do. Our ignorant mind is the same. So we should train this mind. The Buddha taught us to train the mind, to teach the mind. Even if we support Buddhism with the 4 requisites, our support is still superficial. It reaches only the bark or sapwood of the tree. The real support of Buddhism must be done through the practice, nowhere else. Training our action, speech, and thoughts according to the teachings. This is much more fruitful. If we are straight and honest, possessed of restraint and wisdom, our practice will bring prosperity. There will be no cause for spite and hostility. This is how our religion teaches us. If we determine the precept simply out of tradition, then even though the Ajahn teaches the truth, our practice will be deficient. We may be able to study the teachings and repeat them, but we have to practice them if we really want to understand. If we do not develop the practice, this may well be an obstacle to our penetrating to the heart of Buddhism for countless lifetimes to come. We will not understand the essence of the Buddhist religion. Therefore, the practice is like a key, the key of meditation. If we have the right key in our hand, no matter how tightly the lock is closed, when we take the key and turn it, the lock falls open. If we have no key, we can't open the lock. We will never know what is in the trunk. Actually, there are two kinds of knowledge. One who knows the Dhamma doesn't simply speak from memory. They speak the truth. Worldly people usually speak with conceit. For example, suppose there were two people who hadn't seen each other for a long time. Maybe they had gone to live in different provinces or countries for a while, and then one day they happened to meet on the train. Oh, what a surprise. I was just thinking of looking you up. Perhaps it's not true. Really, they hadn't thought of each other at all, but they say so out of excitement. And so it becomes a lie. Yes, it's lying out of heedlessness. This is lying without knowing it. It's a subtle form of defilement, and it happens very often. So with regard to the mind, Tuccho Pothila followed the instructions of the novice. Breathing in, breathing out, mindfully aware of each breath, until he saw the liar within him, the lying of his own mind. He saw the defilements as they came up, just like the lizard coming out of the termite mound. He saw them and perceived their true nature as soon as they arose. He noticed how 1 minute the mind would concoct one thing, the next moment something else. Thinking is sankara Dhamma, conditioned, conventional quality or reality. Something which is created or concocted from supporting conditions. It's not asankara Dhamma, the unconditioned. The well-trained mind, one with perfect awareness, does not concoct mental states. This kind of mind penetrates to the noble truths and transcends any need to depend on externals. To know the noble truths is to know the truth. The proliferating mind tries to avoid this truth, saying, "That's good," or "This is beautiful." But if there is Buddho in the mind, it can no longer deceive us, because we know the mind as it is. The mind can no longer create deluded mental states, because there is the clear awareness that all mental states are unstable, imperfect, and a source of suffering to one who clings to them. For Tuccho Pothila, the one who knows, was constantly in his mind, wherever he went. He observed the various creations and proliferations of the mind with understanding. He saw how the mind lied in so many ways. He grasped the essence of the practice, seeing that this lying mind is the one to watch. This is the one which leads us into extremes of happiness and suffering, and causes us to endlessly spin around in the cycle of samsara, with its pleasure and pain, good and evil, all because of this lying mind. Tuccho Pothila realized the truth and grasped the essence of the practice, just like a man grasping the tail of the lizard. He saw the workings of the deluded mind. For us, it's the same. Only this mind is important. That's why we need to train the mind. Now, if the mind is the mind, what are we going to train it with? By having continuous sati and sampajanya, we will be able to know the mind. This one who knows is a step beyond the mind. It is that which knows the state of the mind. The mind is the mind. That which knows the mind as simply mind is the one who knows. It is above the mind. The one who knows is above the mind, and that is how it is able to look after the mind, to teach the mind to know what is right and what is wrong. In the end, everything comes back to this proliferating mind. If the mind is caught up in its proliferations, there is no awareness, and the practice is fruitless. So we must train this mind to hear the Dhamma, to cultivate the Buddho, the clear and radiant awareness, that which exists above and beyond the ordinary mind, and knows all that goes on within it. This is why we meditate on the word Buddho, so that we can know the mind beyond the mind. Just observe all the mind's movements, whether good or bad, until the one who knows realizes that the mind is simply mind, not a self or a person. This is called Cittanupassana, contemplation of mind. Seeing in this way, we will understand that the mind is transient, imperfect, and ownerless. This mind doesn't belong to us. We can summarize thus. The mind is that which acknowledges sense objects. Sense objects are sense objects as distinct from the mind. The one who knows both the mind and the sense objects for what they are. We must use sati to constantly cleanse the mind. Everybody has sati. Even a cat has it when it's going to catch a mouse. A dog has it when it barks at people. That is a form of sati, but it's not sati according to the Dhamma. Everybody has sati, but there are different levels of it, just as there are different levels of looking at things. For instance, when I say to contemplate the body, some people say, what is there to contemplate in the body? Anybody can see it. Kesa, the hair of the head, we can see already. Loma, hair of the body, we can see already. Hair, nails, teeth, and skin, we can see already. So what? This is how people are. They can see the body all right, but their seeing is faulty. They don't see with the Buddho, the one who knows, the awakened one. They see only the body in the ordinary way. They see it visually. Simply to see the body is not enough. If we only see the body, there's trouble. You must see the body within the body. Then things become much clearer. Just seeing the body, you get fooled by it, charmed by its appearance. Not seeing transience, imperfection, and ownerlessness, kama chanda arises, sensual desire. You become fascinated by forms, sounds, odors, flavors, and feelings. Seeing in this way is to see with the mundane eye of the flesh, causing you to love and hate and discriminate into pleasant and unpleasant feeling. The Buddha taught that this is not enough. You must see with the mind's eye, see the body within the body. If you really look into the body, it's so repulsive. There are today's things and yesterday's things all mixed up in there. You can't tell what's what. Seeing in this way is much clearer than to see with the carnal eye. Contemplate. See with the eye of the mind, with the wisdom eye. People understand this in different ways. Some people don't know what there is to contemplate in the 5 meditations. Head, hair, body hair, nails, teeth, and skin. They say they can see all those things already, but they can only see them with the carnal eye, with this crazy eye, which only looks at the things it wants to look at. To see the body in the body, you have to look more clearly. This is the practice that can uproot clinging to the 5 khandhas. To uproot attachment is to uproot suffering, because attachment to the 5 khandhas is the cause of suffering. If suffering arises, it is here. It's not that the 5 khandhas are in themselves suffering, but the clinging to them as being one's own. That's suffering. If you see the truth of these things clearly through meditation practice, then suffering becomes unwound, like a screw or a bolt. When the bolt is unwound, it withdraws. The mind unwinds in the same way, letting go, withdrawing from the obsession with good and evil, possessions, praise and status, happiness and suffering. If we don't know the truth of these things, it's like tightening the screw all the time. It gets tighter and tighter until it's crushing you and you suffer over everything. When you know how things are, then you unwind the screw. In Dhamma language, we call this the arising of nibbida, or disenchantment, weariness, a skillful turning away from the world. You become weary of things and lay down the fascination with them. If you unwind in this way, you will find peace. Leave it there for today. Any questions, comments? Yeah.
These days, often mindfulness is described as, sometimes as bare awareness or bare attention. But it sounds like in this talk, Ajahn Chah is saying that for a practitioner to even use Buddho to see the difference between the sense objects and the senses, one needs samadhi.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that whole idiom of bare awareness is a bit doesn't quite capture what mindfulness actually is. I mean, it might be bare awareness, but it's not mindfulness. Mindfulness is always a composite of. I mean, the Buddha himself, over and over and over, that his classic description of mindfulness is atapi Buddhanusati ma vinaya lokeya bija domanasa. So having effort, atapi, mindfulness, sati sampajanya, clear comprehension, and that is there's a discernment and whatnot happening within that, and then a turning away from the things that lead to that kind of the desire and aversion, liking and disliking toward the world. That's a function of and description of mindfulness. So that sense of bare awareness is just not taking in the object, is really not that apt for how the Buddha uses mindfulness.
So is Buddho better translated as more similar to a form of bare awareness or to mindfulness?
No, it's more like a. I mean, it's like Buddho is more. I'd say normally it would be, one who knows, awakened, radiant, has a bright quality, clearly discerning. It's not just some sort of kind of neutral, blah state.
Yeah. I was thinking about the sutta where it's Buddha reflecting after his awakening about the importance of dwelling with respect and reverence for a teacher.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't see anybody who is more accomplished in the path, and so things about dwelling with respect and reverence for the Dhamma. But it seems interesting that he would kind of reflect that. I think he says it's suffering to not have somebody to respect and revere.
Yes, I mean, I think that's.
Speaking to fully awakened.
No, I think that is a very a kind of astute observation of the human condition, that we as human beings, it's not comfortable to live in a way where one doesn't respect anybody or anything, or doesn't have any reverence for anything other than me. which is it's pretty. It's like Lumpur Sameda said. Every time I think of myself, I get depressed. That's the way the mind works. And so that kind of propping up of self and not really having a feeling of respect or reverence for anything outside of oneself is a pretty miserable way to live.
Wouldn't seem though that Buddha having gone beyond all that would have no need for it. Or?
Well, that was what he's sort of saying, that what he did have a need for it in the sense of as a but that rather than it being focused on say an individual or a particular cause, or then it's that these principles of truth are really what form the basis of respect and reverence, and really one could say, he spent 45 years fulfilling, that's his teaching. The teaching is in service of truth and this true Dhamma.
Would it be appropriate to say that suffering that the Buddha was talking about is not like the suffering of the Four Noble Truths, but more the suffering of unpleasant experience of not having that refuge? When you use the word suffering or dukkha, it's not like the dukkha based on craving.
Oh, it is. But it's you've got Kama tanha, bhava tanha, vibhava tanha, all the different forms of desire.
But that his suffering by not having a teacher.
Oh, I don't think he's talking about his suffering.
Right.
I think he's talking about it's quite normal as a human being, to when one lives in it, it's probably a bit of a conundrum that he felt that normally, as a human being, this is what a human being would do.
Pointing out or saying it's like not like the suffering was based on craving, but the suffering that he was feeling, the suffering based on not having a teacher, which was
this is
not having a teacher, not because he was craving.
Well, he's reflecting on the human condition, and reflecting on his own situation. In the same way that he reflected on when he could have, with psychic powers, he could have turned the mountains to gold, but he said, that's kind of useless. It's
I think about it as well as like the Buddha, like his level of truth is such that like everything he does, he's setting the example for what to do, what's a skillful way to be, a skillful way to live.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's one illustration of that, is that this is how you should be. Put something higher than yourself.
Which is that's again, this is when you're using that as a extension or completion of Buddhanusati, and that sense of in its fullness, it's a lot more nuanced than just reflecting on the historical Buddha, or which is incredibly inspiring as well. But
and it's like it gives the Buddha has a sense of reverence. It's like not like he becomes the Buddha and then he doesn't have reverence, or he doesn't revere something, but he reveres the Dhamma. It's like human qualities.
break.